Extra pressure, critical incidents, high demand, all things we are very used to hearing when winter hits the NHS. The government plans to cut waiting times for non-urgent treatment, but some say it is avoiding the current crisis in emergency care. This winter seems particularly bad, but why? I'm Mary Nightingale, and this is what you need to know. Welcome to the podcast, where I'm joined by ITV News health correspondent Rebecca Barry. Hello, Rebecca. There's a lot going on, clearly. What is causing this current crisis?
Well, this year the flu season has come early, and it's also on track to potentially be the worst we've ever seen. Plus, there's this so-called quad-demic of winter viruses. That's COVID, the sickness bug norovirus, the respiratory virus RSV, and flu, all coming together at the same time. Plus, there's the really cold weather, which means the elderly suffer more falls and they can be more susceptible to getting really poorly. So all these things are combining to pile pressure on NHS services. Over Christmas and New Year, cases of flu continued to skyrocket. I mean, there were 5,000 people a day in hospital with flu over that period, including 200 a day in intensive care. That figure quadrupled in just a month. Obviously, the rise in those viruses means more patients are coming into hospital, but it also affects staffing levels. More staff are off sick, so there's a double blow. Right now, frontline NHS staff are telling me that they are really under extreme pressure, and that's why we're seeing so many hospitals taking extreme steps, declaring these critical incidents, as they call them.
Well, I was going to ask you about the declaring critical incidents. What does it actually mean?
So a hospital declares a critical incident when it is so busy, it's under such extraordinary pressure that it can't operate normally, and they have to bring in special measures to basically keep patients safe. It might mean that bosses draft in extra staff, or it could mean that they actually have to cancel or postpone non-urgent operations and treatments and appointments so that they can prioritise people with the most urgent clinical need. It also allows them to get the message out there to the public. They're saying, please do not call 999 or come to A&E unless your condition is life-threatening. If not, they want you to use services like 111, your local pharmacy or your GP. Some hospitals have also brought in restrictions to visitors, telling people to come in by yourself, not with anyone else, and they're also asking people to follow more strict infection control measures, things like hand washing, using hand sanitizer, and the wearing of face masks, all measures which will be very familiar from the pandemic. Now, critical incident could last anything from between a few hours, days and weeks. And we do see them quite frequently, especially during the winter. And it's not just because of things like viruses. It can also happen when a hospital suffers an IT failure or a technical fault. We've seen those in recent years too.
You spend quite a lot of your job, don't you? Quite a lot of your working day in hospitals.
I do, yeah.
Give us a sense of what it's actually like at the moment.
Well, I went to one hospital just before Christmas, and I went to the intensive care unit there. It was a hospital in Nottinghamshire. And I don't say this lightly, but some of the sights and sounds that I witnessed were hauntingly reminiscent of the pandemic.
Oh, really?
I was in this intensive care unit with the sounds of patients struggling to breathe were awful, and the staff there told me that they had about, I think it was 4 patients at that time out of 15 on the intensive care unit that were in a critical condition with flu. The nurse told me that they were treating patients in the prone position, which is a technique they used often during the pandemic, where they put a patient on their front to increase oxygenation into the blood. And one man there was actually only 42 years old. He was a father of 3. He'd been previously fit and healthy and now had been in an induced coma for a week because of flu. People don't necessarily think that it can be that serious, but that example from that one hospital just shows the increased pressure that these increased and earlier cases of flu in the winter are having on hospitals.
So why is flu particularly bad this year?
Well, experts say that the flu season has come early, so we're seeing a level of cases which would usually come much later in the winter season. And worryingly, I guess, experts say the peak could still be to come. Lots of friends and families would have been gathering over Christmas and New Year, and now with kids going back to school, lots more mixing, and so we could see yet further rises.
Can I ask you about vaccination? Because the flu vaccination has been available, certainly for vulnerable people, for elderly people. What's the take-up been like of that?
Well, the actual booking system to sign up for that is now closed, but NHS bosses are saying that you can still go into a pharmacy or a walk-in clinic to get your vaccination if you are eligible. As you say, that's if you're elderly or children over 6 months old or pregnant women, and they really are urging people, even though the online booking system has now closed, to still seek a vaccination because it feels like we're not out of the worst of this yet.
Yeah, but to return to the situation in hospitals right now, and you've experienced that as you explained so eloquently, what is the government saying about this?
Well, in a radio interview just this week, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, said that he was ashamed of what some patients were going through in the NHS right now. He said it was really distressing for him when he'd visited hospitals, seeing patients being treated in corridors. He described the frail and the elderly and people with dementia who were in pain and confused. That's not something that anyone should really be going through, quite frankly. He has pledged to do everything he can to tackle this problem, but he's admitted it will take time. And they say that they will actually publish a plan to reform urgent and emergency care shortly. We've already seen from the government its plan to tackle waiting lists for non-urgent treatment, but some people, as you said in your introduction, say that they are ignoring the immediate crisis, the winter crisis, an immediate crisis in emergency care. The Lib Dems have said that the government risks prioritising hip operations over heart attacks unless it tackles the problems in the emergency system and, of course, the problems in social care, which are causing these backlogs backing up into A&E.
It really is a huge problem, isn't it? What are people telling you in hospitals and on the medical front line? What are they saying to you about this?
Well, I've had WhatsApp messages from doctors in A&E departments today. One doctor saying it was just simply awful. She works in a hospital where they've declared a critical incident, and she said for the first time since the pandemic, she's now having to treat patients in corridors, which obviously no doctor wants to do. I've spoken to several hospitals who say they are on the brink of declaring critical incidents, so it's still happening. And doctors say it's not just the increased demand, it is that exit block, as they call it, because there isn't the availability of beds in social care. They just can't discharge people, so that causes this awful backlog and then people waiting really long in A&E. The Royal College of Emergency Medicine predicts that there could be an extra 14,000 deaths this winter because of delays in A&E. They say this isn't just because of a freak flu season. They say that they are so overwhelmed and fragile constantly that a flu season like this creates real problems, real extra pressure for them. And they've been chronically overwhelmed for years, and this is just the straw that's breaking the camel's back, they say. And as I said earlier, worryingly, it feels like we're not out of this yet, with schools going back and, the result of people travelling and getting together over Christmas and New Year means we could see even more cases of flu in the coming weeks.
Oh, grim. Rebecca, thank you for that. And thank you for listening. You can dive into our other quick briefing podcasts, find out what you need to know about a whole range of headline topics. Until next time, bye-bye.